Trimming a foot on the wheel. When you're trimming a foot, you want to work directly on the wheel head. Don't use a bat anymore because you want to be able to see these circle shapes on the wheel head to help center your bowl for trimming. So you're going to put your bowl upside down on the wheel head and you're going to position it in between the edges of the closest circle and try and get the edges of the lip of your bowl evenly spaced with the edges of the closest circle. Once you have that, you're going to very carefully turn on your wheel, select your direction, and you're going to very, very slowly start up the wheel so that it's at a slow spin. And then you're going to put your finger out to the bottom edge of the bowl and feel if there's any part that seems to be closer to you than others, because we want the base centered as much as possible. So I'm noticing that my finger gets pushed at a certain point, so now I'm going to track along the bottom edge of my bowl to see if there's a vantage point I can see to help mark where that is. So once I've figured out where I am being pushed, I want to push away from that side to help finish centering my bowl. It's a lot closer to center now, so I'm going to turn my wheel pedal back off. Now I'm going to take 3 little clumps of clay and I'm going to press them first into the wheel head really firmly, and then I'm going to push the clay towards my bowl to help hold it in place. I want to have these fairly evenly spaced so that my bowl has no chance of escaping the wheel while I'm trimming. Now, for trimming, there's a few tools that you'll want. A large loop tool, a small loop tool, a pin tool, and you may want a sponge and a small amount of water. So, your goal with trimming is to get rid of any excess clay on the bottom of your bowl so it's not very heavy anymore, and to also create the foot, which is that little part that raises or lifts the bowl off of the table and creates a good even surface for the bowl to sit on. So I'm going to start with the large loop tool to trim off some of the excess mess along the outside bottom edge of my bowl. Whenever I'm trimming, I always want to brace my tool hand with my other hand so I have additional backup control. I also want to trim the flat part on the bottom of my bowl to make the outer edge evenly flat. It doesn't matter on the inner edge because we're going to trim that away deeper, but the outer edge should be evenly flat so your bowl can rest evenly on a table surface. So what I'm doing is I'm feeling for where the clay is pushing my tool, getting a feel for that rhythm, and then pushing back in that same rhythm to get rid of the high spots. Depending on how much thickness you have on the bottom edge of your bowl, there's 2 ways you can shape your foot. You can shape it so that this base here is in line with the same curve of your bowl, or you can shape it so the foot changes angles and goes more straight up and down compared to the slope of the walls of your bowl. Either way is fine. Mostly has to do with how much clay you have on the bottom of your bowl. If you have a lot of extra clay, you probably want to create that little upwards foot. If you don't have a lot of extra clay, you probably want a lot more of the even slope with the rest of your bowl. Once you've trimmed out the outside edge and evened out the outer top edge, you're then going to take a loop tool, or a pin tool first if you want, and you're going to go a little ways in from the edge, about 1/4 inch to 1 centimeter in from the bottom edge. You want to hold your tool steady for a moment to be sure you're exactly where you want to be, again bracing your tool hand with your other hand, and then you're going to slowly lower it down onto the clay on the base of your bowl to start to mark where the rest of the clay is going to get carved away for your foot. You do want to pay attention to how thick and firm your clay feels on the bottom of your bowl. If it's already feeling flimsy, you don't want a very deep foot. If it's feeling fairly solid, you want to trim deeper into the foot to again remove excess clay and make your bowl lighter. I know mine is not super thick, so I'm not going to make a super deep foot, but I am going to go a little bit farther in because I know I have a little bit of room to go. So once you have the border marked for your foot, from there in, you're going to use a loop tool to carve away some of that extra clay. So there's a consistent circular indentation where you've carved away the extra clay in the middle of your foot. As you're carving, you may want to periodically stop the wheel and tap the bottom of your bowl again. Mine is right about where it needs to be. I can tell that it's not much thicker there, so I'm going to go ahead and call that a completed foot, or just about. So I'm just going to neaten up my edges, taking my loop tool across the top to remove that burr that's come from using it, and to just kind of clean up the inside edge of my foot. Even any last parts out that may be a little bit uneven. And then, the reason you might want a sponge is to dip it in water because the tools have left a different texture on your bowl. The sponge will help you to smooth that back out to the same wheel thrown texture that the rest of the bowl has. So I can just use a damp sponge against the edge of my bowl where I've been trimming to kind of neaten that texture out. I could do that on the bottom edge of my foot as well. And then I'm going to be putting my name and year that I made the bowl and all that good information on the bottom, so I want to use a drier edge of the sponge to kind of soak up any extra remaining moisture. Once you're satisfied with the shape of your foot, you can go in with your pin tool and go ahead and inscribe your name along the bottom of your bowl. It can either be straight across the middle or you can follow the curve of your foot. I like to follow the curve of my foot. Put my name on there and the year. And for ceramic students, you will also put your class period circled on there so we know what period you made it. And that is the basics of trimming a foot.